The pause was my mindset because at first I wanted to control everything and force us back to the way we were, really slowing down and turning, I guess, more internal.
Welcome to this episode of Time to Press Pause. I'm your host, Ellen Williams, CEO of The Salient Strategist and author of Creating Time, the key to productivity and peace. Today we're talking about when family issues arise and pressing pause to step back, to be introspective, and making sure we're being intentional as we move forward. My guest today is Cory Dunham, a values-driven executive leadership coach at Cory Dunham Leadership. He is also a keynote speaker who helps high-performing executives lead with unshakable confidence by aligning values with bold action, turning fear into purpose and results into legacy. With over 30 years of business experience and a lifelong commitment to faith, family, and integrity, Cory empowers executives to lead themselves without burnout before they lead others, integrating who they are with how they lead. Hi, Cory, and welcome to this episode of Time to Press Pause.
Thank you, Ellen. It's good to be here.
I'm so glad that you and I were able to connect. I'm really interested in hearing your press pause story, so please share.
Sure. Yeah, for me, it started back roughly 2.5 years ago in June of 2023. It was basically in regards to myself and my wife, our relationship, our marriage. We're still married as of August of 2025. It's been 26 years. 2 years ago, it was about 24 years of marriage. And all of a sudden in June, and this is just from my standpoint too, obviously my wife has a side. There's always another side to the story. My wife is wonderful, but then in June, all of a sudden, she was gone a lot, trying to figure out, oh my goodness, what's going on here? We hadn't gotten into any fights or anything else like that. But my business was humming along, or businesses. And then my wife was a speech therapist in the schools. Everything's going along there. All of a sudden, once again, she was gone. I just didn't know why and what happened there. And then as we move forward through that whole situation, come to find out, I thought it was just me noticing the difference, but then it turned out to be my kids, my mother-in-law, people in our Bible study. The ladies were asking me questions. Where is she? And what's going on with her? And I didn't know, but somebody else had mentioned that, how old are you, Cory? How old is she? And at that time, I was roughly 55. She was roughly 51. And somebody had, I think, mentioned to her in a conversation that that could be menopause or perimenopause. Not being familiar with any of that, I've researched, there's over potentially 70 symptoms. Many people I've talked to, some ladies, some friends I know, some business associates, they've clued me in that every woman responds to this time of basically hormonal changes, no different than we all had hormonal changes at the beginning of our lives in the teenage area. When it comes to perimenopause and menopause, many people are not very educated. And the most surprising fact of this is that most doctors or only have had very little, if any, training on menopause. And this is all the doctors from lady doctors, whatever you want to call them, in different areas, but they haven't had much training. And then I think insurance has also fallen behind. So there is a huge gap in women being taken care of in these years from basically 42 to 52 years old or beyond, because some women continue to have symptoms from menopause that linger for the rest of their life. Some people, these symptoms calm down either over time or with treatment. But with my journey and my faith background, I'm a Christian and I believe in marriage and supporting my wife. And even though it's been extremely difficult over the last 2 years, things have gotten better in the last 8-9 months. Not sure why. My wife and I haven't really communicated on that very well. It's been very difficult as she's extremely busy, and I feel she's backed herself into a corner. Some of the research I found says that women's brains actually change throughout all of this. But I'm trying to be a loving husband as best I can, understanding, and just realizing, ooh, there's something here I don't understand, because she's completely different than what she was. And it felt like a light switch just had flipped during that time. And also too, trying to show an example for my 3 young adult kids who are still in our home. I've been able to open up and have a stronger relationship and communication with my kids when things seems so uncertain and everything that was going on. There's nothing wrong with my wife. It's just a misunderstanding of what's going on because she's an awesome woman, awesome wife, awesome mother, very dedicated to everything she does and loves our family. And she's been one of the most wonderful things on the planet in terms of our family and enjoyment and keeping all of us together. One of the biggest pieces is that I could not focus when I was at work. And I run a couple of different businesses. I'm an executive leadership coach and keynote speaker. And I'm also part owner and on the advisory board of our family marketing business that's been around since 1980. I just could not focus on anything I was doing at work and then at home. My mind was fogged up and just in a stress mode and all those types of things. When I pressed pause, it took me a while, but I had to focus on what are my deepest core values and what's important to me. So one of the things is I had to realize through my faith and trusting in God is that I cannot control what my wife does or how she feels or what kind of things she's going through or even understand it. I really had to just simplify things, put my own oxygen mask on. And I say that because I talk about a lot of pilot stories. Some of my impactful life journey has been getting a private pilot's license back in 92. And I relate a lot of things to that, learning how to fly and realizing once again, I can't control anybody else, but how can I either be a presence that's loving, caring, and understanding, and also taking care of myself? And how can I also be in a place to just be patient, not bombard my wife, not force any outcomes from her? As I've learned too, that many couples get divorces around their 20, 25-year mark. A lot of different factors and just not really being intentional with our marriage relationships or any of our relationships. This goes for everything. So there has to be an intention. And then when things get bad and rough, it's easy to think that the grass is going to be greener on the other side. And that's what our media and TV shows and everything else shows us. However, some of the two pieces of advice I've gotten, which made me chuckle, even though they're not quite that funny. But when people say, yeah, the grass is greener on the other side. However, you still have to mow it and there's still weeds that come up. So you still have to maintain it. So no matter where you go, there's always going to be the same either challenges, issues, or things involved in order to keep something that you truly want to keep. In this case, we're talking about relationships. And the one factor is that if we run from relationship to relationship, we're bringing the one person that potentially was part of the problem in the first relationship. So it's important to look at ourselves first and not necessarily point the finger at other people and ask them to change or expect them to change, even if we're in a hurting position.
So I appreciate all of the advice and thoughtfulness that you're bringing to this story. Could you just clarify? So, what was the pause? So, obviously,
Yeah.
your wife's behavior started to change,
Yeah.
but do you feel that your moment of pause was in how you were participating in the relationship?
The pause was my mindset because at first I wanted to control everything and force us back to the way we were, really slowing down and turning, I guess, more internal and external toward focusing on God and my faith and listening more. For me, it was basically working on myself and slowing down. Do I really have all the details? Do I really have all the answers and know for sure what's going on here? And as I thought about it, I said, I really don't know what's going on here. And then the more information I learned from other people and research, I realized, oh my goodness, my wife could be transforming into a whole different person brain-wise and the values or this time in her life. And I really had to just strip out everything. And luckily, God was good. Be still, be quiet.
Be quiet.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that this podcast is all about, is the ability to be present, be quiet, and take that time. So you were able to learn about menopause from what sounds like a lot of different sources. Did you speak directly with your wife and find out what she was going through and how she was trying to deal with it?
I tried to several times, but most of the answers I would get is I'm not sure what's going on. And sometimes it was I don't feel good. I don't like certain things at work or in life and just generality. So never anything specific, which is also why I also started sharing and talking about this with some of my closest trusted people were women about this type of thing. Some women have described it as two of you sitting beside yourself. Here's the old person, and here's this new foggy, what's going on? Why is this happening to me?
So do you feel that you're still in the pause? Your pause?
I do actually. I think it's a journey and it's a process, and that in some ways, before I realize we all have a journey through life, but in some ways, okay, now we're on life is pretty good. We're on cruise control, but cruise control in that everything's on autopilot. And then you realize, okay, nothing ever stays the same. I knew that before, but now I think I have a deeper awareness that we truly need to be intentional, impactful, and then focus on what our purpose is in life. And that's, I feel, one of the biggest changes over the last 3 years as I've decided to add from our marketing business. I said, there's a lot of executives we dealt with over the last 30 plus years, and I've been in the workforce for 39 years. However, with dealing with a lot of executives and leaders out there, realizing that there's a lot of need out there. And it's not just our business life that where we want to succeed in, because who I coach now, I coach both men and women. But when I think on the men or man side of things, I like coaching people who already have that level of success, mostly those external validations, but are now on their maybe their second or third family, which is unfortunate because maybe they're a workaholic like I used to be. And just like money's the only goal, that's the only important thing. And I think a lot of our society is still like that today because of all the TikToks and YouTubes and everything else. If I were to just give a number, let's say there's really 10 aspects of our lives that are important. There's the money part, but there's the relationships, business and personal. There's our faith side. There's our family. There's our fitness, our future. A lot of F words that are good. And our fun, a lot of different things that we need to consider. What's important to us? How do we see that vision down the road? So the goal setting, instead of just being day to day, mindlessly moving forward in everything we do and not putting intentionality. Because if we're not doing that, our business is going to fall to pieces. If we're not doing that with our relationships, it's the same thing. We may feel good about things, but what's our spouse or our significant other or our family or our kids? What are they feeling in that moment? Have we just been going day to day in a numb way and not being intentional?
That's interesting that you're talking specifics about the things that are important, but how they also apply equally between our personal and professional lives. So the things we consider when we're at work and how we prioritize are similar to the things that we consider when we're at home or with our family or just not at work, and
Right.
how we think through things and prioritize them, and being present and intentional is
Yes.
going to benefit basically all those areas of our lives.
Yeah.
Cory, this really has been wonderful, really interesting, different conversation, and I appreciate you being so honest and vulnerable with your story. I have one last question for you.
Well,
What advice would you give? And I would just say, usually I say leaders, but anyone really, as to when they would identify it's time for them to press pause.
I feel everyone is a leader of their own life. It's just a matter of, are they intentional? Are they purposeful? Do they know their vision, or are they just allowing life to happen around them and they're just being pulled down the current? And that's where I was for a long period of time. So the advice I would give is it's easy to say snap out of it. And and ask, are you truly living the life that you want? Are you truly creating the impact around you that's both going to make you feel good, but really that impact is helping other people? However, as I say, the oxymoron about this is you have to find that purpose first yourself. Because if you don't have that oxygen mask fully working here first, then it's going to be very difficult for you to serve others in a full capacity. And then do it in the right way that's going to be best for yourself and for the other people. Because sometimes we're outside doing a lot of things away from our family or relationships, our personal life, and it's interfering with the personal life. There's not a proper balance for you. Everybody has a different balance on what's going to be important for them, those types of things. So really slow down, turn off the freaking phone, devices, the scrolling, even for 5 minutes, and you'll be surprised at what your brain starts assimilating all these different ideas. Because I feel we just consume, back before the internet, it was consumed a few hours during the day at school and some of our personal neighborhood life. But now we are consuming 24/7, and our minds never shut down in order to assimilate and integrate a lot of the things we learn.
I love that you said everyone is the leader of their own lives. I think that's a powerful statement, and to really internalize that and understand it is something that's impactful for every person. And I'm not sure that every person gets that opportunity to really feel that. But I would wish that for everyone
I
to
agree.
get that opportunity to feel that. Thank you so much for being here today. This was a fascinating conversation, somewhat different than my typical conversations on this podcast, but that's part of the fun, is that I don't know the press pause story before we start, and the conversation takes the direction that it needs to take. So thank you for sharing your story, for sharing your advice, and for agreeing to be here today.
It's been my pleasure, Ellen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Time to Press Pause. If you're interested in learning more about Cory, please visit corydunham.com. If you're interested in learning more about me, please visit thesalientstrategist.com, and you can find my book, Creating Time, The Key to Productivity and Peace, at Amazon. And please listen again wherever you listen to your podcasts.